Have you ever dreamed of living, working, and traveling abroad in Europe? Well, 2 years ago, we did just that. We moved to the Silver Coast of Portugal, and since then, we have walked the Caminito del Rey in southern Spain, done a Pinchos crawl in the Basque Country, shopped vintage markets in Provence, and risked our lives driving through the Balkans. We've seen a show on London's West End, listened to live music in a pub in Dublin, had haggis for the first time in Edinburgh, and taken a canal ride through the Light Festival in Amsterdam. We've made friends, launched a business, and explored castles and beaches all over Portugal. But behind the highlight reel, how do we really feel about living in Portugal after being here for 2 years?
Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Dawn.
And we're the Unretirees, and in this video we're going to talk about what it's really like to live in Portugal, the biggest lessons and the biggest regrets that we've had in the 2 years that we've been here. At the end of this video, we're going to answer the really big question: would we do it again?
Now, when it comes to Portugal expat content, there seems to be two camps. The first one is, this is absolute nirvana, and if you're not here, you're missing out. And the other one is, it's terrible, I hate it here, it's all a scam. And there just really didn't seem to be a lot of content of how we feel about Portugal, which is, we do love it here, but there's also some very real frustrations. Imagine you were sitting across from us having coffee and you leaned in and you asked us, what do you really think about living in Portugal? This video is our answer. Now, before we jump in, I just want to say these are frustrations for us. If you're considering a move to Portugal, or maybe you've already moved here, what's a big deal for us may not be a big deal for you, but we just feel like it's important to talk about it so you can make the best and most informed decision for your own move abroad.
And as always, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you moved to Portugal? And if so, what are your frustrations and what do you love about it? And if you're thinking about making a move, what questions do you have?
So before we jump into our biggest lessons and our deepest regrets, we just want to talk about sort of the main reasons why everyone tends to choose Portugal. Everyone who moves here tends to choose this country over the others, and these were definitely big factors for us. This includes things like cost of living, lifestyle, weather, safety, healthcare, and the Portuguese people.
2 years in, does the hype really match what it is to live here in Portugal? And for us, the answer is yes across all of those categories. Now, cost of living is a hot button, of course, because real estate prices have gone up meaningfully here in the last several years. But for everyday things, for food and for restaurants and everyday life, those expenses are still quite a bit lower than you would experience in many other European countries, and certainly a lot lower than they are in the US. I mean, when we travel to the other European countries, there's a bit of sticker shock that we experience in those countries, but there's a big sticker shock that we experience when we travel back to the US.
And by the way, before we go any further, we just want to say if you are considering a move to Portugal, there are a couple of ways that we can help. We've got a Moving to Portugal online course, sort of a go at your own pace, and we also offer a consultation call that you can book with us. We'll leave both of those links in the descriptions below. Of course, we also have tons and tons of free content on this channel, so be sure to subscribe so you never miss a video, and we include even more resources in our free weekly newsletter. All the links to all of that are below. But here are some lessons that we learned in the 2 years since we moved.
Well, the first big lesson is that logistics are never what you expect. So we're going to talk about that in two ways. The first is in bureaucracy. Now, Portugal, not surprisingly, has a lot of bureaucracy. Most countries do, but in Portugal, it's a new language. You're trying to do a lot of stuff at one time, and it just feels overwhelming. And overall, our experience with Portuguese bureaucracy has actually been relatively smooth. We haven't had a huge number of bumps in the road, but we know some people who have had significant challenges.
Yeah, and we've definitely hit our own. For example, Matt has been trying to get his driver's license changed over to the Portuguese system for a long time and has submitted and resubmitted the same. It can be frustrating.
And it's still unsuccessful.
We have friends who shipped a car and that's been caught in red tape. They haven't been able to drive it for almost a year. We also know somebody who spent months and months just calling repeatedly to the AIMA office trying to get an appointment. So those challenges are real. They definitely do exist. As Matt said, are they better or worse than other countries or even the US? Who's to say? But they are real. And there's something that you say about this that I think is really helpful.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that every country has bureaucracy, and certainly in the United States, we had a whole set of bureaucracy. But when you grow up in the United States, it's you reach that at whole different times, right? You get your birth certificate when you're born, you get your social security number at a young age, you get your driver's license at 16 or 18, you register to vote when you're 18. You do all of these things over a big span of life, where here you're trying to do all of those things in just really the first 6 months that you're in Portugal. And so, and you're doing it in a new language with a process that you don't understand. It is difficult. Again, I think about people who we know when we were back in the States who immigrated to the United States. Their process is not very smooth either.
It was just as challenging.
So still under logistics, the second item here is packages. Now you would think that this would be simple, but in Portugal, it's not. I mean, so when you want to buy something, you need to first determine if it is available in Portugal. Then you need to determine if it can be shipped to Portugal if it's not available in Portugal. Third, you need to be prepared if it's shipped to perhaps receive it and perhaps not. We've had a few situations, for example, we're trying to buy Apple HomePods, like HomePod minis, but they're unavailable here in Portugal. We can't get them shipped into Portugal. It's just a very odd thing. Now, we could go across the border and pick them up and bring them back. It's just sort of odd that you can't get them shipped, but we've also had things shipped that have never come.
Yeah, they've just been lost. And listen, we get it. It's a first world problem. Like, oh, our packages aren't here. Like, that's not actually a problem, but it is a frustration when there's things that you're trying to get done. So our big lesson here is, well, if I asked Matt, he'd probably say that the big lesson is shop less. But I think the real lesson here is just that you've got to have a sense of humor when it comes to logistics in Portugal or any country that you move to. If you question your life choices and your decision to move every single time that you face a challenge, and I say that with love because I have definitely had those moments, then moving abroad is going to be very, very challenging. So keep a sense of humor and resilience. Those two things really are an expat's superpower.
Well, another lesson is your financial world will get more complicated. Look, moving your whole financial life abroad, especially if you are working, can be daunting. And no matter how much you research and how much you study, there are going to be questions that you just did not know to ask. And so there are things that are going to feel like you're just getting kicked. For example, you may get a sudden tax bill, or one of the things that we discovered was there's certain inheritance laws here in Portugal that make it a little complicated for us. And had we known those specifics beforehand, we would have probably structured things a little bit differently than we did. But honestly, we just didn't know that that was a question to ask.
Yeah, I think the big lesson here is that never assume that just because something makes sense in the US or whatever your home country is, that it is going to necessarily make sense in the country that you're moving to. You know, as Matt says, it is hard to know every single detail to ask. And so that's why we say over and over on this channel, like a broken record, be sure that you pay for all the consultations before you make the decision to move to a country. It's really important to pay up front for those consultation calls. And the reason that we keep driving that home is because we meet so many expats who didn't do that and they've had to learn some really expensive mistakes. And we just don't want that to happen to you.
Well, the third big lesson is things are going to change. Now, look, we had a life plan when we moved to Portugal. Our plan was to move here, and in the first 5 years while we were residents of Portugal, we were going to build a business and we were going to do fast travel as legal residents. Once we were here long enough, we could apply for citizenship, and once we gained citizenship, we would be able to do more slow travel and experience the Shenzhen region at a slower pace and without restrictions.
Yeah, while still having our home base here in
That's right.
Portugal. Now, if you watched our video about why we chose Portugal over Spain, France, and Italy, and if you haven't seen that, we'll link it in the description below, you know that one of the deciding factors for us, not the only one, but one of the deciding factors for us in choosing Portugal is that there was a 5-year path to citizenship.
Now, at the time that we are recording this video today, there is a proposal that has passed the Congress or the Parliament here in Portugal to extend that to 10 years so that you have to be a resident of Portugal for 10 years before you can become a citizen, and that there will be no grandfathering. And that means that for people like us who have been here less than 5 years, who are not yet in the citizenship pipeline, that it would affect us. So suddenly our timeline may go from 5 years to 10 years, which is not really great. So it is true that there is one more final vote on Tuesday, then it goes to the president to sign or to kick it to the Constitutional Court. So this is by no means a final law. However, it does seem like there is some momentum around moving out the citizenship to 10 years.
But as of right now, we're just thinking about, do we need to reassess our plan? Now, this is not unique to Portugal or even to life, frankly. We've all had seasons of life where we've had to reassess. And the truth is that just in the 2 years that we have been here, there have been so many changes, not just in Portugal, but all over Europe. And so this is really an ongoing thing about how immigration is changing in Europe. But the lesson really here is that when you move to a new country, hold your vision firmly and your plans loosely. For us, our vision was to live, work, and travel abroad and to make that as a sustainable lifestyle for as long as we wanted. Yes, the rules might change and you'll have to reassess the how, but as long as you're clear on the what, it doesn't have to derail you from the life that you're designing. So the big question is it worth it, and would we do it again? When you consider everything that we have been able to experience and all the frustrations that come with moving to a new country, would you do it again?
Yeah, I would actually. I think that when you think about the big elements that we talked about as factors for us thinking about it, climate and safety and healthcare and ease of getting a visa and cost of living, those things are all still very true. And I think if we were still in the process of deciding where to go, the 10-year thing, if that comes to fruition, that would just put it at an even playing field with most of the other countries in Europe. So it isn't an advantage, but Portugal has some other advantages that still, for me, would push us toward Portugal. What about you?
Yeah, I think our goal was never to have a life that was free of all frustrations. Our goal was really to have a life that felt full and that where we had a lot of freedom. And we definitely have that. And so, yes, there are pros and cons. There's things to navigate. That will always be true. But I think it's 100% worth it for us to live out our dream to live, work, and travel abroad.
And if you want to see our video that we did after we had lived in Portugal for 1 year, not 2 years, you can watch this Moving to Portugal After 1 Year video right here.